Cheating stories. Her secret account hit a $100,000 betrayal. If this story moved, you don't forget to drop a comment and subscribe to Viora for more unforgettable stories that speak to the heart. Her suitcase was by the door, half zipped, as if she'd packed in a hurry. I stood frozen in our living room, the key to her office drawer still warm in my palm. It wasn't the late-night texts that broke me. It was the name on the leash she'd hidden there, a name I'd trusted for years. My name's Ethan Caldwell, a 34-year-old financial consultant who built a comfortable life in suburban Connecticut. Not a billionaire, mind you, but I'd clawed my way to a 7-figure net worth through late nights and smart investments. My wife Lauren was the heart of it all, or so I thought. With her warm hazel eyes and quick laugh, she made our colonial-style home feel like a sanctuary. We'd been married 6 years, no kids yet, but we had plans, big ones. A family, a second home by the coast, maybe even a dog named Scout. I'd spend hours crunching numbers for clients at my firm, but every deal I closed was for her, for us. Lauren ran a boutique event planning business, always buzzing with energy. She'd come home with stories of demanding brides or last-minute venue swaps, and I'd listen, pouring her a glass of Pinot Grigio. "You're my rock, Ethan," she'd say, kissing my cheek. I believed her. Why wouldn't I? Our life wasn't perfect. Whose is, but it was ours. Date nights at the Italian place downtown. Lazy Sundays with coffee and crosswords. Her hand in mine during walks through the park. I thought we were bulletproof. That illusion cracked 3 months ago. It started small, like a hairline fracture in glass. Lauren's phone began lighting up after midnight. She'd silence it, muttering about needy clients, but her fingers trembled as she typed. I'd ask casually, "Everything okay?" She'd smile too brightly and say, "Just work, babe." I wanted to believe her, I did. But doubt is a quiet poison. It seeps in slow and steady until you can't ignore the taste. Then came the trips. Lauren's business had always demanded travel, but suddenly she was gone every other weekend. Corporate retreats, she said, "Big money, Ethan. It'll help us get that beach house." I nodded, proud of her hustle, but her stories didn't add up. She'd mention a venue in Boston, but her credit card statements showed charges in New York. Once she came home with a scarf I didn't recognize, smelling faintly of cedarwood cologne. "A gift from a client," she said, tucking it away. My gut twisted, but I swallowed the feeling. Love makes you stupid sometimes. The real fracture came 2 weeks ago. I was at the bank reviewing a client's portfolio when my phone pinged with a notification from our joint account, a $3,000 withdrawal labeled consulting fee. Odd, since Lauren hadn't mentioned any side gigs. I called her, but it went to voicemail. When I got home, her office door was locked, a new habit. "I need focus, Ethan," she'd said when I asked about it. But that night, as she slept, I noticed her keyring on the counter. One key, smaller than the rest, gleamed under the kitchen light. It didn't fit our house. Curiosity isn't a crime, but it felt like one when I slipped it into my pocket. The next morning I waited until Lauren left for a client meeting. Her office was a shrine to her chaos fabric, swatches, mood boards, sticky notes. The drawer, though, was locked. My hands shook as I turned the key. Inside, I found a lease agreement. Not for an office or a venue, but a 1-bedroom apartment in Manhattan. The tenant, Lauren Caldwell. The guarantor, Ryan Ellison. My oldest friend. The guy who'd been my best man, who'd toasted our marriage with tears in his eyes. My chest tightened like someone had sucked the air from the room. This wasn't just a cheating story. This was betrayal, carved into my bones. I didn't confront her. Not yet. I needed proof. Not just a paper trail, so I dug deeper. Her laptop was password protected, but she'd used the same one since college, our anniversary date. Rookie mistake. Her email was a minefield. Messages from Ryan, casual at first, then intimate. "Miss you already." One read sent last month while I was at a conference. Another. "The apartment's perfect. Our little secret." My vision blurred, not from tears, but from rage. I scrolled further, finding photos. Lauren in a dress I'd never seen, laughing in Ryan's arms at some rooftop bar. The timestamp, my birthday. The kicker wasn't the affair. It was the bank statements. Lauren had funneled $20,000 from our savings into that apartment over 6 months. Money I'd earned, money we'd saved for our future. She'd lied to my face night after night while building a life with him. I sat there staring at the screen, the hum of the fridge deafening in the silence. Outside rain battered the windows, mirroring the storm in my head. How do you love someone who's been stealing from you, your money, your trust, your future? I could have called Ryan. I could have screamed at Lauren when she walked through the door, her hair damp from the rain, her smile practiced and perfect. But I didn't. Revenge isn't always loud. Sometimes it's a plan cold and precise, like balancing a ledger. I started small. I transferred our savings to a new account, one she couldn't touch. I called my lawyer, a guy who'd handled my firm's contracts for years. Discreet. I told him I want options. He didn't ask questions. Good lawyers don't. The first twist came that weekend. Lauren announced she was hosting a client dinner at our house. Big deal. Ethan could be a game changer for my business. I nodded, playing the supportive husband, but my eyes were on her phone. She'd been texting Ryan all day, cryptic messages about tonight. I didn't need to guess what was coming. I just needed to be ready. The dinner was a facade. Caterers buzzed through our kitchen, but the guest list wasn't clients. It was Ryan, a few mutual friends, and Lauren's sister Claire, who'd always been cagey around me. As I poured wine, I watched them. Ryan's hand brushed Lauren's back when he thought I wasn't looking. Claire's laugh was too loud, her eyes darting to me like I was a bomb about to go off. The air felt thick, like the moment before a market crash. I smiled, refilled glasses, and waited. Then I saw it. On the counter, half hidden by a tray of appetizers, was a pregnancy test. Positive Lauren hadn't mentioned trying for a baby, not with me. My heart didn't break. It hardened. This wasn't just a cheating wife story. It was a conspiracy, and I was the fool who'd funded it. I slipped the test into my pocket, my face a mask of calm. To new beginnings, I said, raising my glass. Ryan smirked. Lauren blushed. Claire looked away. They thought they'd won. They were wrong. That night, after the guests left, I sat in my study, the lease and test laid out like evidence in a trial. The rain had stopped, but the silence was heavier. I wasn't the man I'd been 6 years ago, naive and trusting. I was Ethan Caldwell, the guy who'd turned a small inheritance into a fortune by reading the fine print. And I was done being played. The clock on my desk ticked past midnight, its rhythm steady against the chaos in my mind. The pregnancy test sat next to the lease, its 2 pink lines glaring like a verdict. Lauren's laughter from the dinner party still echoed in my head, each giggle a blade. I hadn't slept. Not really. My eyes burned from staring at her emails, her lies woven into pixels. Ryan's words. Our little secret felt like a brand on my skin. But I wasn't ready to burn everything down. Not yet. I needed to see how deep this went, how far they'd gone to bury me. Morning came gray and heavy. Lauren was in the kitchen humming as she brewed coffee, oblivious to the storm I'd become. "You were quiet last night," she said, sliding a mug toward me. Her voice was light, practiced. I studied her, the way her fingers curled around her own cup, the faint smudge of mascara under her eyes. She looked like my wife, but she wasn't. Not anymore. Just tired. I said, my tone flat. She didn't push. Maybe she didn't care. I sipped the coffee, bitter as the truth in my pocket. I spent the day at my firm, but my mind wasn't on portfolios or market trends. I called a private investigator, a guy named Vince who'd helped a client track down a shady partner. No questions, no traces. I told him I need everything on Lauren Caldwell and Ryan Ellison. Start with the apartment. Vince didn't flinch. 2 weeks, he said. You'll have what you need. I hung up my pulse steady. For the first time in days. Knowledge was power, and I was done being powerless. The first curveball hit that afternoon. Claire, Lauren's sister, texted me. "Can we talk alone?" I stared at the message, my thumb hovering over the screen. Claire had always been distant. Her loyalty to Lauren, fierce. But her tone felt off, urgent. Against my better judgment, I agreed to meet her at a diner on the edge of town. The place smelled of grease and regret, its neon sign flickering like my trust. Claire slid into the booth, her eyes red-rimmed, her nails bitten to the quick. I didn't want to get involved. She started, her voice low. But Lauren's gone too far. My jaw tightened. Spit it out, Claire. She hesitated, then leaned forward. The baby isn't Ryan's, it's someone else's. The words landed like a sucker punch. I'd braced for betrayal, but this. Another layer of lies. Who, I asked, my voice steel. Claire shook her head. She won't say, but she's scared, Ethan. She knows you're onto her. I leaned back, the vinyl seat creaking. Scared good. She should be. Claire's confession didn't absolve her. She'd known about the affair, the apartment, and hadn't said a word until now. Why tell me, I asked. Her eyes dropped to the table. Because you don't deserve this. And because I'm done covering for her. I didn't trust her, not fully, but her fear was real. It was a crack in Lauren's facade, and I'd pry it open. That night I played the part of the oblivious husband. Lauren was home, curled up on the couch with a book, her phone face down beside her. Long day? I asked, pouring her wine. She nodded, her smile thin. Just the usual chaos. I sat across from her, watching the way her fingers twitched, the way her eyes avoided mine. The pregnancy test burned in my pocket, but I didn't show my hand. Instead, I asked, "How's Ryan doing? Haven't seen him since the dinner." Her face froze just for a second before she recovered. "Oh, he's fine, busy with work, liar." The next week was a chess game. I moved pieces quietly, gathering evidence while Lauren thought she was safe. Vince sent updates, photos of Lauren entering the Manhattan apartment, timestamps of her visits, even a shot of her with a man who wasn't Ryan. He was older, sharply dressed, his hand on her arm as they stepped into a cab. Vince couldn't ID him yet, but the sight of him twisted the knife. How many secrets was she keeping? How many lives was she living? I dug into the financials next. The $20,000 she'd siphoned wasn't the half of it. Lauren had opened a separate account, one I hadn't known about, with deposits totaling $50,000 over the past year. The source wire transfers labeled consulting fees from a shell company. I traced it to a holding group tied to Ryan's law firm. He wasn't just her lover. He was her accomplice. My hands shook as I printed the statements, each number a betrayal. This wasn't a fling. This was a heist. The second twist came on a rainy Tuesday. I was at the bank freezing the last of our joint accounts when my phone buzzed. An email, anonymous, with a single attachment. A video. I hesitated, then clicked. It was grainy, shot from a phone, but clear enough. Lauren in a hotel lobby arguing with the older man from Vince's photos. Her voice was sharp, his low and threatening. "You owe me," she hissed. This wasn't the deal. He grabbed her wrist and she yanked away, her face pale. The video cut off. No context, no names. But it was a match to the fire in my gut. Lauren wasn't just cheating, she was playing a dangerous game, and I was collateral damage. I forwarded the video to Vince. "Find out who he is," I said, "and why she's scared." Vince didn't ask questions, but his silence told me he knew this was bigger than an affair. I drove home through the downpour, the wipers slapping rhythmically like a countdown. Lauren was out, another client meeting, so I searched her office again. This time I found a burner phone taped under her desk. No contacts, just one number in the call log. I dialed it, my pulse hammering. A man answered, his voice clipped. "You shouldn't have this number." I hung up, my breath shallow. Whoever he was, he wasn't Ryan. The confrontation came sooner than I'd planned. Lauren got home late, her coat dripping, her eyes distant. "Rough day?" I asked, leaning against the counter. She nodded, avoiding my gaze. I slid the burner phone across the island. Care to explain this? Her face drained of color, her lips parting, but no words came. "Ethan, she stammered. Don't I cut her off? I know about the apartment, Ryan. The money. The baby." Her eyes widened, and for the first time I saw fear, raw, unfiltered. "You don't understand," she whispered. "You don't know what's at stake." "Then tell me," I said, my voice low. "Dangerous?" She shook her head, tears welling. "I can't. Not yet." She reached for my hand, but I pulled back. "You're out of time, Lauren." I walked away, leaving her standing in the kitchen, the burner phone between us like a loaded gun. Outside, thunder rumbled, shaking the windows. I didn't look back. The next morning, I met Vince at a coffee shop. He slid a folder across the table. The guy in the video, Marcus Hale, hedge fund manager. Big player in New York. Shady deals, rumored ties to some rough people. I flipped through the pages, photos. Financial records, a rap sheet for fraud that never stuck. "What's his connection to Lauren?" I asked. Vince shrugged. "Not clear yet, but she's been meeting him for months. The apartment's in his building." My stomach churned. Lauren wasn't just cheating. She was entangled with someone who could ruin us both. I spent the day unraveling her lies. The shell company tied to Ryan's firm had links to Hale's fund. The consulting fees were payments for something Lauren wasn't sharing. Maybe blackmail, maybe worse. I didn't know yet, but I was closing in Ryan. Meanwhile, was unraveling Vince's photos showed him drunk outside a bar, his tie loose, his face haggard. Lauren's betrayal wasn't just mine. It was his too. She'd played us both, but I wasn't the one drowning. The third twist hit like a freight train. Claire called, her voice shaking. Lauren's gone, Ethan. She left a note, said she's leaving town. Something about fixing things. I drove to Claire's apartment. My mind racing. The note was scrawled on a napkin. I'm sorry I have to end this. Don't look for me. No explanation, no destination. But I wasn't letting her vanish. Not after everything. Vince traced her credit card to a motel in upstate New York. I drove through the night, the road blurring under my headlights. The motel was a dive, its neon sign half dead. Lauren's car was in the lot, but her room was empty. On the bed, a single photo, me and her years ago smiling at a beach. On the back, in her handwriting, I never meant to hurt you. Too late for that. I sat on the bed, the photo crumpling in my fist. The rain started again, tapping the window like a warning. Lauren was out there running from me, from Ryan, from Hale. But I wasn't done. Not by a long shot. This cheating story wasn't over, it was just getting started. The motel room smelled of stale cigarettes and despair, the kind of place where secrets went to die. I clutched the photo of Lauren and me, its edges worn from my grip, her handwritten apology on the back like a taunt. I never meant to hurt you. The words were hollow, a final lie from a woman who'd built a house of them. Rain hammered the window, blurring the neon glow of the motel sign outside. Lauren was gone, her car still in the lot, but her presence erased like she'd vanished into the storm. I wasn't chasing a ghost, though. Not yet. This cheating story had too many loose ends, and I was done letting them unravel me. I searched the room, my hands methodical despite the rage simmering in my chest. Under the mattress, I found a folded receipt from a gas station dated yesterday, 200 miles north. Tucked in the bathroom drawer was a cheap prepaid phone, its screen cracked. No contacts, but the call log showed 3 outgoing calls to a number I didn't recognize. Not Ryan's, not Marcus Hale's. I pocketed the phone and the receipt, my mind racing. Lauren wasn't just running, she was hiding. From me, from Hale, maybe even from herself, but no one outruns the truth forever. I called Vince from the motel parking lot, the rain soaking my jacket. She's headed north. I said, my voice steady, despite the chaos. Track that prepaid number and dig deeper on Hale. Anything tying him to her directly. Vince didn't hesitate on it, but Ethan, watch your back. Hale's not the type to play nice. I hung up the warning, settling like frost. I didn't care about nice. I cared about answers. The drive north was a blur of wet asphalt and headlights. The receipt's address burned into my mind. It led to a small town in the Adirondacks, the kind of place people go to disappear. By dawn, I was parked outside a diner, its windows fogged from the morning chill. Vince texted the prepaid number was a dead end, a burner bought with cash. But he'd found something else, a wire transfer from Hale's fund to Lauren's secret account, $100,000 dated 2 days ago. The memo read, final payment. For what, silence, loyalty, or something darker? I stepped into the diner, the bell above the door jangling. The waitress, a woman with tired eyes, barely looked up. Coffee, she asked. I nodded, scanning the room. No Lauren. But in the corner booth, a man sat alone. His back to me, his posture too stiff for a local. I slid into a seat nearby, my instincts screaming. He didn't turn, but I caught his reflection in the window. Marcus Hale. My pulse kicked up. Coincidence didn't exist in this game. I sipped my coffee, watching him. He was on his phone, his voice low-clipped. She's not here, he said, pausing. No, I didn't tip her off, just find her. He hung up his knuckles, white around the phone. I didn't move, didn't breathe too loud. Hale wasn't just involved, he was hunting her too. The question was why I paid for my coffee and left my mind spinning. Lauren wasn't the mastermind. I'd thought she was a pawn caught between me and a man who played dirtier than I ever could. Vince's next update came as I hit the road again. The prepaid phone's last call had pinged a tower near Lake Placid, 30 miles away. I drove the mountains looming like silent judges. The town was quiet. Its streets lined with cabins and tourist shops closed for the season. I found her car outside a rundown rental cabin, its windows dark. My heart pounded as I approached the prepaid phone heavy in my pocket. The door was unlocked, creaking as I pushed it open. Inside, the air was stale, the furniture cheap. Lauren sat on a couch, her knees drawn up a blanket around her shoulders. She didn't flinch when she saw me, didn't run. Her eyes were hollow, her face pale. "You found me," she said, her voice barely a whisper. I didn't sit, didn't soften. "What's the final payment, Lauren? What did Hale buy from you?" Her lips trembled, but she didn't answer. I stepped closer, my shadow falling over her. "You owe me the truth. After everything, you owe me that." She looked away, her fingers twisting the blanket. "It wasn't supposed to go this far," she said. Finally, Ryan was a mistake, a distraction. But Marcus, he was business. My stomach churned. "Business," I repeated, my voice low, dangerous. She nodded, tears spilling. "He needed someone to move money, clean it. I was good at it, better than Ryan. The apartment, the accounts, it was all for him." I stared at her, the pieces clicking into place. Lauren wasn't just cheating. She was laundering money for a criminal, using our marriage as a cover. Why, I asked, my voice breaking despite myself. "We had everything." She laughed, a bitter sound. "Everything. You were always working. Ethan. Always chasing the next deal. I was alone, and Ryan, he saw me. Then Marcus offered me a way out. Money, freedom. I thought I could control it." She wiped her eyes, her voice steadying. "The babies, his, Marcus's. He doesn't know yet." The room spun. Not Ryan's, not mine. Hale's. The man who'd been hunting her, who'd paid her to disappear. I sank into a chair, the weight of it crushing. "You're running from him," I said, not a question. She nodded. "He thinks I'm a loose end. I took his money, but I didn't know he's coming for me." Her voice cracked. "I didn't mean for this, Ethan, I swear. I didn't want her apologies. I wanted justice. You destroyed us," I said, my voice cold. "For what? Money, power." She flinched, but I didn't stop. "You let Ryan think the baby was his. You let me think I was your husband, and now you're running from a man who'll kill you to tie up loose ends." She sobbed, her hands covering her face. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I'm so sorry. Sorry didn't fix this. Sorry didn't erase the nights I'd spent planning our future while she planned her escape. I stood, my decision made. You're on your own. Lauren, I'm done." Her eyes widened, panic flaring. "Ethan, please, he'll find me. I cut her off. That's your problem now." I walked out the door, slamming behind me. The rain had stopped, the air sharp with pine and regret. I didn't look back. But this wasn't the end. Hale was still out there, and I wasn't about to let him win. I called Vince, my voice steady. "Hale's in Lake Placid. Find out who he's working with, and get me everything on his fund, every dirty deal, every hidden account." Vince didn't ask questions. "Give me 48 hours, he said. I hung up, my plan forming. Lauren had played her game. Now it was my turn. The next twist came faster than I expected. Ryan called me, his voice slurred. "Desperate, Ethan, man, I didn't know. She lied to me too. The baby, it's not mine." I didn't care about his sob story, but his next words stopped me cold. "Hale's got people watching you. He knows you're digging." My grip tightened on the phone. "What else?" I demanded. Ryan hesitated, then spilled. "Lauren was feeding him info on your clients, your firm's deals. That's why she needed your laptop, your passwords." The betrayal cut deeper than I thought possible. Lauren hadn't just stolen my money or my trust. She'd jeopardized my career, my reputation. I hung up, my mind racing. Hale wasn't just after Lauren. He was after me, my firm, everything I'd built. This wasn't a cheating story anymore. It was war. I drove back to Connecticut, my plan solidifying. I met my lawyer, laying out everything. Lauren's accounts, Hale's fund, the money laundering file for divorce, I told him, and tip off the feds about Hale's deals, anonymously. He nodded, his pen moving fast. "This could take him down, Ethan. But it's risky." I didn't care about risk. I cared about justice. The final act played out quietly. The feds moved on Hale's fund, raiding his offices based on anonymous tips. His name splashed across headlines. Hedge fund mogul linked to money laundering scheme. Lauren's name stayed out of it, but she didn't escape. Vince tracked her to a women's shelter in Vermont, living under a false name. Her dreams of freedom shattered. Ryan, broken and broke, moved to a nowhere town, his law career in ruins. They'd lost everything, money, status, each other. I rebuilt a new house, a new office, a new life. My firm weathered the storm, my clients loyal. Once the truth about Lauren's betrayal came out, I didn't forgive her, didn't forget her, but I let her go. The photo from the motel, the one of us on the beach, stayed in a drawer, a reminder of what trust costs. Months later, I saw her. Not in person, but on a grainy security camera feed Vince sent me. She was in a grocery store, her hair dyed her face, gaunt, pushing a stroller, alone. The baby Hale's baby gurgled, oblivious to the wreckage of her mother's choices. I watched the footage once, then deleted it. Lauren wasn't my story anymore. I stood on my new balcony, the Connecticut skyline sharp against the dusk. The city hummed below, alive with possibility. I'd lost everything once. Love, trust, the future I'd planned. But I'd built something better. Not perfect, but mine. The question lingered, though, as the stars blinked on. Did I do enough? Or did I let her off too easy, letting the world punish her instead? What would you have done? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Like what you heard? Hit that like button, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to Viora, because the next story might just be your favorite one yet.